Hello, welcome to the Talking Michigan Transportation Podcast. I'm Jeff Cranston. Today, I'm going to be talking with a couple of people about an innovative program that the Michigan State Police are using to try to track distracted drivers, especially in work zones. One in particular on I-96 in Ionia County, heavily traveled corridor between Lansing and Grand Rapids, a major project going on to rebuild several miles of freeway there. And as this project began, MDOT and state police saw a rash of crashes early on, many involving people speeding in the work zone or being distracted. So the Ghost Rider program actually has people in unmarked cars that monitor and flag people who are texting or doing something to violate the state's law against using handheld devices while you're driving. I'm going to be talking first with Tanya Polakevich, who is a construction engineer for the Grand Region, helping to oversee that project about what it means to try to maintain some kind of mobility on such a busy roadway that so many people rely on for commercial use or for commuting. Later, I'll speak with Sergeant Bradley Campbell of the Michigan State Police about some statistics and about how the program works and other things that they're doing to try to curtail speeding and distracted driving. So I hope you enjoy it. So once again, first, I'm speaking with Tanya Polakevich, who is the construction engineer for the Grand Region. She oversees a lot of the big time projects in the Grand Rapids area. This one that I mentioned in the introduction on I-96 is one of the bigger projects that will consume a lot of attention over the next couple years. Tanya, first time visitor to the podcast. Thank you for taking time to do this.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate being asked to come on.
So let's talk a little bit first overall about your job and what it is you do before we jump into the 96 project and some of the challenges there.
Sure, yeah. So as you had mentioned, I'm the construction engineer at the Grand Rapids TSC. So I help oversee the construction projects in Ionia, Kent, Allegan, and Berry counties. So what that means is we review all the plans that are going out the door, make sure that we can actually build them and maintain traffic through those work zones. And then while those projects are going on, we work hand in hand with the contractors and the consultants to deliver those projects and build those projects as safely as we can with the best quality that we can. And then we furnish payment to the contractors for those projects throughout the construction. And obviously with that, we have a lot of work zones that we put out throughout our system. So keeping a safe work zone, keeping the motorists safe and our workers safe that are out there, not only MDOT workers, but the contractor and consultant staff is absolutely paramount.
So like a lot of DOTs and really even county and local street departments, MDOT's put a lot of emphasis on mobility and user delay costs and how to, all the jokes about winter and construction season in Michigan. There's a lot of truth to that because there's only so many months of the year you can do this kind of serious work. So you and your colleagues have to balance constantly how to accommodate people who expect that their 40-minute commute is always going to be 40 minutes no matter what, and how to safely get the work done. And that's what this is about. And this one presented some particular challenges as it began, even though it's pretty much, straight flat road without a lot of curves on that segment. There were a lot of crashes, people coming up on the scene. Cars were backed up and they were distracted, likely, and speeding and couldn't stop. You sent me a photo of one yesterday that was particularly bad, and amazing that the driver walked away. So talk about how you strike that balance.
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot that goes into a construction project. You had mentioned we're obviously trying to get the project done as fast as we can. So obviously that usually requires single lane closures, double lane closures, or full closures of the roadway. And we review all those impacts as, how long is somebody going to be waiting in a backup? If it exceeds 10 minutes, that's usually critical. So then we determine which is going to be the best traffic control setup for those projects. So in the 96 project, we currently have single lane closures throughout the project. It's a little under 9-mile segment. So with those 9-mile closures, you have a lot of workers that are out there. You have a lot of motorists that are slowing down through the work zone because it is where workers present 45 miles per hour. And then you have a lot of trucks that are trying to get in and out of the work zone that are hauling material in. Right now, we're hauling in sub-base, which is the sand and gravel that go underneath the temporary widening portion. And then once they dump, they're going to be getting back into the active lane of traffic as well. So trying to coordinate all of those and make sure that we can be productive out there so we get a good cost for the project and a good quality project, but also trying to minimize the impacts for the commuters, for the truck traffic, and anybody traveling through our zone is really important.
Do you feel like, I mean, we know there's lots of things going on, starting with the pandemic. Obviously, we know that people were speeding at incredible rates. The state police have tracked that, and that's been nationwide. There was more drivers with substance abuse issues, more people were drinking during the pandemic, all those factors. But it also seems like in these work zones, there's this frustration. Everybody wants the roads fixed. The governor ran on fixing the damn roads. And so we put a lot of money in the past few years, and there's a lot going on. And everywhere you go in the summer, you feel like you're running into a construction project. Do you think some of that frustration plays into the behavior?
Oh, I absolutely think so. And I don't even think it's, all about the frustration. I think everybody's so used to multitasking these days. What's one of the first thing I do when I get in my car? I GPS the route before I leave the driveway to see if I'm going to hit one of my own construction zones. Do we have a single lane closure up today? And I think a lot of people don't think ahead and do that before they leave and see how long it's going to take them to get to work. So they see, construction signs, or they know that there's a construction zone up ahead, or they just see brake lights and don't know about the zone. And what's the first thing they do? They grab their phone. They're going to see how long they're going to be sitting in traffic. Or if they are sitting in traffic, they're grabbing their phone and looking to see if somebody texted them. There's just so much multitasking going on when you are in that driver's seat. It's your job to drive the car and drive that car safely. And I think that kind of goes out figuratively out the window, right? When you have all these other things that you could be doing rather than sitting in traffic.
Yeah, the technology gives and takes away. I think you've probably heard my analogy to how we build better bombs. We have better defense systems, and then we also build better armament to protect ourselves. So then you have to build even better bombs. So it seems like the more we do to make our cars safer, the more we do to make our drivers not safe.
Right. You nailed it. You nailed it right on the head. And there's just so many distractions. And it's not even just cell phones, right? There's kids in the car, and you see a lot of the distracted driving in our younger kids. Just I think in 2022, distracted driving took over 3,000 people, and that was all just related to distracted driving. And really that comes out to be 9 Americans a day being taken by distracted driving back in 2022. It's a scary world out there, and people are doing something other than driving the car, and that's what we need to get back to.
Yeah. And those are verifiable stats. We probably have reason to believe those numbers are even higher, right?
Absolutely. Like I said, those were just taken from 22 from the National Highway Traffic Administration. So those were the most recent ones that I had.
Yeah, but what I mean is that the cases where they can prove in the investigation that it involved distracted driving, sometimes it's hard to prove, but you suspect that was the case.
Oh, absolutely. And we see it every day out on 96 in our construction zone. Everybody's picking up the phone. They have no concept of the fact that there is a person standing next to them 10 feet away on the other side of the drums, completely open to the elements. They're not, they don't have a bubble around them or anything like that. And we're driving, 45 miles an hour, hopefully. I mean, some of the patrol units have pulled people over going 75 miles an hour in a work zone when there's people standing next to them 10 feet away, and no concept of what that would feel like, because they've never stood in a work zone like that, having traffic fly by going 70 miles an hour.
So have you ever worked as closely with law enforcement on a project as you have with Sergeant Campbell and the Michigan State Police on this one with the Ghostwriter program?
I would say this project's been going for about a month and a half. I've never worked so closely with Michigan State Police this quickly on a project. I've done several projects on 96 over the last 15 years I've been here. I think we're usually doing some sort of a construction project on 96 between Lansing and Grand Rapids, about on average every 2 to 3 years, just due to the condition and the age of the pavement. But this one, we knew going into it, we planned for it. We had planned for heightened enforcement through this corridor just based on the history and the crash pattern that we've had in work zones throughout the last few years. But I think by far we have put the most emphasis on this segment in the last month and a half, like you had referenced.
Do you feel like you got caught a little by surprise going into this with the so many crashes, especially at the beginning? We know what's going on. We know how people have been driving the past few years. But again, given the sight lines and all the warnings, all the signs, all the, what Waze does, what Google Maps does, what Apple Maps does, what MDOT's Site My Drive does, that people still come up on these scenes and didn't know about it?
I think surprised is an accurate word. I think we had close to 4 or 5 crashes the first week the construction zone was set up. We have seen some of those taper off, I think, just because we have, I'm calling them repeat customers, but you have commuters that are driving that every day. You have truckers that drive, the same route, a couple times a week. So they're more aware of it now. But the part I'm surprised about is when we get the calls to the office complaining that they had to sit in traffic for 10 minutes or whatever, and they say, I didn't pass one sign that told me about this construction zone. That's what I'm surprised about, because we have flashing message boards. We have static signs, which are the orange signs with the words on them. And, some of these people pass upwards of 10 signs and they tell me they didn't see any. That's what surprises me. So if they aren't seeing the signs, what were they looking at before they entered the zone?
Well, and so many people, if they don't have their own nav system in their vehicle now, you have Apple CarPlay, and whatever app you use as a GPS device shows you color-coded lines on the road ahead to tell you that, hey, if it's red, you're going to be slowing way down. I'm like you, I don't get it either. But speaking of that frustration, so tell me this. When you meet somebody introduces you to somebody and they ask where you work, and you say, you explain what you do, how does that conversation usually go?
I wouldn't say favorable, but when I say, hey, I'm Tanya, I work at MDOT, I work in construction is primarily what I say. And they say, oh, well, when is this job going to be over? And then they ask me about whatever job it is. And then you hit the nail on the head earlier on when you said people want the roads to be fixed, but we all kind of lost a lot of patience, I feel like, over the last decade. And we forget how long it takes to actually complete these types of projects. So yeah, it's definitely you get an earful from time to time, but rightfully so. Everybody's a taxpayer and they all have a vested interest in it. And quite honestly, all of these construction zones touch somebody's life one way or another, whether it's they're getting something delivered to their house or they're driving through it or bringing their kids to school. So we got to be mindful of trying to meet all those needs as well.
Well, I think you made a good point earlier, too, and it's a good reminder that people forget sometimes that you and all of your colleagues drive, too. And so you're slowed down. You don't have any secret way of getting around. You don't know any shortcuts that aren't available to anybody else. So I don't know how you explain that to people, too. Sometimes you have to say, yeah, trust me, I'm eager for this job to be done for lots of reasons.
Yep, absolutely. And we're all impacted by it, right? And I think what people don't know is all the time and effort that's put into it on the front end. I mean, we talk about some of these projects for years before they come. We're looking at our budgets. What can we allocate for additional work zone enforcement or, these ghost rider operations and things like that. We do spend money on those to improve the safety. And really, that's what we're doing out there is just what else can we do to make these projects safer? We got temporary rumble strips. So even if you are looking down at your phone, it's going to shake your car and go to try and get you to wake up and look up and realize that there's a construction zone. There's flashing lights, there's flashing signs. What else can we do? Trying to hit all the senses, right? Trying to hit everybody's senses. So they look up, they're paying attention. They just focus on driving through the work zone.
I'm among many who appreciate the work you do and everybody like you across the state that has to deal with these things. And so thank you for doing that, and thanks for taking time to talk about it.
No, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity. And like I said, just for you and everybody else, please drive safe out there and keep everybody safe, everybody in your vehicle and the vehicles around you and the workers on the side of the road.
Stay with us. We'll have more on the other side of this important message.
In Michigan, safety comes first on the roads. To combat distracted driving, Michigan passed the hands-free law.
The law makes holding or manually using a cell phone or other mobile electronic device while operating a vehicle a primary offense. This means an officer can stop and ticket you for violating the law.
This can include, but not limited to, sending or receiving a call, sending, receiving, or reading a text or email, accessing, reading, or posting to social media sites, or entering locations into the phone GPS.
With this law in place, drivers are encouraged to stay focused, keeping their hands on the wheel and their attention on the road. Drive smart, drive safe, drive hands-free.
Michigan's hands-free law, making the road safer for everyone.
I'm now with Sergeant Bradley Campbell of the Michigan State Police Lakeview Post. Sergeant Campbell, thanks for taking time to talk with us today.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for having me.
So let's start first with a little bit of your background before we talk about the Ghost Rider program and all that MSP does to support these construction projects and try to make the work zone safer. How did you decide to become a trooper? Are you long out of the academy, and how'd you end up at the Lakeview Post?
Well, I've been in the department for 25 years, or just over 25 years. Initially, when I was younger, I didn't start out to become any type of law enforcement. I was kind of far from that mindset, and I happened to join the military, did my service, and I was a military police officer at the time, and I just kind of fell into it. It was a knack that I enjoyed, and right after I got out of doing 7 years of service with the Marines, state police was hiring. So I jumped on that and came back home to Michigan, and here I am. So it's been great.
So interesting. You were an MP. Where were you stationed?
Really all over the United States, California. I've been to Quantico, Virginia was my first duty station. I spent time in Iwakuni, Japan, which was really neat. That was interesting. And Texas, San Antonio, Alabama, and gosh, am I missing something? A lot of places in California. So yeah, it was it was good. And for a young person, it was neat to see the world and different things and how things worked, in different places besides Michigan. So yeah.
Yeah, you literally covered a lot of bases.
Yeah, I did. I moved around a lot, so it was fun.
So let's talk about the work at hand. Earlier, I spoke with Tanya Pulikevich, who's the MDOT construction engineer for the I-96 project in Ionia County. And obviously, there are road projects going on all over the state, and your department is doing what they can to try to slow drivers down and keep these projects as safe as can be. Several in Metro Lansing area, several in Flint, several in Detroit, obviously. But this one particularly caught my eye because early on, from the time that the work started, it seemed like we saw an inordinate number of crashes on what is, basically a stretch of road with good sight lines. It's pretty flat, doesn't have a lot of curves. And yet people seem to be, after all the signs and all the warnings, they seem to come upon these backups and be shocked by it. And it's got to be largely because of, speed and distractions. Talk about what you're seeing.
Well, our post area, Lakeview post area, covers Gratiot County, Ionia County, and Montcalm County. In each one of those counties, we have Gratiot County has US 127. Montcalm has US 131 and Ionia County has I-96. And out of those three areas of freeway, I-96 is definitely our busiest spot that we work. And I agree wholeheartedly that a lot of this is speed and distracted driving as far as those accidents that we're occurring right off the get-go. And it's still steady. I don't know if people are getting used to that being there, the everyday person that has to travel or commute on I-96 to their job or school or whatever they have going on. I think, a lot of that, they've gotten used to it, but it's such a busy highway that a lot of people are traveling through there for the first time. And, hopefully I can say that, our efforts out there are attributing to, fewer accidents. That would be great to say. So it's looking better as it goes along, is in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think we can't say for sure without a control experiment whether it is because of the enforcement or it is because so many people travel that road, several times a week, including commercial drivers, and so they've come to know what to expect. But talk a little bit about the Ghost Rider program and how it works.
Well, they reached out to us at the Lakeview Post, MDOT did, the Grand Region, and asked us, would you be interested in putting some troopers out there just to, slow traffic down and see if we can do something about these accidents that are happening. And, we put it together real quick. August, actually, we started near the end of July, starting putting patrols out there when we could throughout the week. And August has been the most patrols that we've had out there. Right now, I've got troopers that are starting right now, heading out there today to work that area. So it's been busy, and I think the troopers that have signed up, once they get used to it, because honestly, we do have a rural post area where a lot of time is spent traffic enforcement in the county, so they don't get out to 96 as much as we would like them to. But they do get out there when they can. But it's better if we have a committed effort out there so they can really see what's happening and get into that traffic side on the expressway. So it's been working good.
So talk about what kinds of things you and your colleagues hear when you investigate a crash and you find, whether it's a Ghost Rider stop because you see somebody actually using their phone, or if it's because it's a crash investigation later. What do people say? Do they claim ignorance of the law, which has been in place for more than a year now, or something else?
And to that, I asked one of the troopers out there that was out there yesterday, and I asked him straight up. I said, "What's your when you have contact with these drivers using their phones while they're driving? What is their excuse?" And he came back. He said, "Well, 4 out of 9 traffic stops that I've had with them using a cell phone today alone, 4 were ignorant of the law itself. 2 were actually from out of state, so we'll kind of give them a little bit of a break. But I think most states now, pretty much across the board, you'd have to think that that's something that state is not going to tolerate. But I'm not up to speed on what every state has on the books for that, but in Michigan alone. But I was kind of shocked. I thought it'd be lower than that, but 4 out of 9 was, those 4 people said that, they had no idea about that law specifically. So it's our efforts are, going towards that distracted driving, because it is a big thing. And I think generation wise, I just say now at this point in time that a lot of people are so used to having a cell phone and probably think that, I'm a pretty good driver and I can do whatever I can on my phone and it shouldn't be a problem. But I think that's incorrect.
Yeah, well, I guess, it's a reminder that most human beings have a phone long before they learn to drive. So.
Right.
Well, what else are you seeing? It sounds like a little counterintuitive, but you're finding actually that the marked patrol cars are more productive in some cases than the unmarked cars.
Yeah, and yesterday I had 2 marked patrol units out there, and by far that's been my the busiest that we've been with this so far. And I talked to a few of the troopers that had used the unmarked car out there. And it was funny because they said that, as soon as somebody would see a trooper in uniform driving an unmarked car, all of a sudden their hands went to 10 and 2 and they start driving really great, So people do see them, but it's not as quick. But I think yesterday kind of proved me wrong, thinking that they would have less stops for people using devices in their phones, which wasn't the case. They had quite a few, actually more than speeding stops in the construction zone. But I can't say for sure if that's because the troopers just concentrated on distracted driving stops, or if speed wasn't a factor or not out there.
So even though these are unmarked cars, the drivers are uniformed troopers.
Yes, because for us, if their partner out there gets into something that's going to require assistance, then I want a uniformed trooper out there to give them a hand. And and honestly, a lot of people don't pay attention to what's going by them at the time or who's driving. Some people do, obviously, but I think for the most part, they don't see who's driving the car.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it sounds like yesterday from the stats that I saw compiled, one person that was stopped for using their mobile device ended up with an arrest for 24 outstanding warrants.
Yes. Yeah, it was. As soon as I saw that today, because I hadn't done stats yet, and then I did that this morning. I looked. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's quite a huge amount of warrants for that individual. And he got picked up finally, I guess, yesterday. So who knows if he had been stopped previously and had gone or not. So yeah.
Yeah, well, sometimes obviously it depends on what else the trooper has going on.
Right.
So while I have you, I want to talk about something else that we hear a lot about and is a great frustration for drivers, and that's the people who camp in the left lane. For a while, MSP was doing special enforcement on that. In fact, I think including that stretch of 96. Do you plan to revisit that, or what's your thinking about that and how to enforce that?
It's something that we look for, the left lane driving, when we're out there, and I encourage the troopers to go out there and look for that. Is it something that I think everybody needs a citation on every time? Probably not, but it would be something to stop them and let them know that this is the case. And again, that's another thing that a lot of people, when you stop them and talk to them about that, they have no idea that that's actually a law, even though I'm pretty sure there's signage out there saying, stay out of the left lane, pretty much. We do run across that quite a bit. And it's funny, if I check in with our dispatch center to go out and say that I'm working traffic on I-96, if the dispatcher will give me a call and say, hey, make sure you take care of those left lane drivers out there today. So,
that's funny.
They travel that road back and forth to work. So that one dispatcher particularly, it was kind of funny that they called me up and said, hey, take care of that today. So
yeah. Well, there is a tie here, because I think oftentimes those left lane drivers are on their phones.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And specifically, I had a case once where I went after a speeder on 96 westbound. And as I was trying to catch up to the speeder, I had a left lane driver just would not get out of my way so I could catch up to the speeder. So I went around to the right, and as soon as I got to it next to him on the right, I looked over and they were on their phone. So I disregarded the speeder and stopped that person for the phone violation. They're kind of surprised about that. So
so somebody got a break that would have been stopped for speeding.
Right, exactly.
Well, I think it's a reminder that we need to up our efforts. We work closely with your Office of Highway Safety Planning, which is housed within the Michigan State Police. But my office and that office work on the messaging and try to make people aware. And if people are honestly this far into it, still ignorant of the law, then I guess we have to just keep at it and do what we can. And hopefully the numbers continue to come down.
Yeah, that's my thought is, If we have the time for the enforcement out there, and honestly, we're like everybody else. We run across staffing issues and things like that. So it makes it a little more difficult to get committed patrols out there. But when we can get out there, it's usually very productive.
Well, I'm going to include a photo in the show notes of a crash yesterday of a car that obviously never slowed down and had to have been going some outrageous speed that made its way under a truck. And if you look at the photo, you'll wonder how anybody walked away from that alive.
Yeah, in doing this 25 years, the technology in automobiles it's amazing. Crashes that I took, say, back in 2000 when I was, a young trooper, I look at now like the same type of crash, and crashes back then, there were very serious injuries or crashes that people just did not survive. And a lot of crashes, same type of crashes today, the automobile does a pretty good job of keeping these folks alive and minimal injuries. So, yeah.
Well, I'm sure you're aware, one of the things we also found with the pandemic, and it hasn't completely curtailed, along with the heavy speeds, were an increase in people not using their seatbelts. I still don't even know how in a modern vehicle you do that. I suppose they probably do things to trick the system. But are you finding any decline in that, or is that still a big issue?
No, I think it's pretty steady still. It depends. And on the freeway, I think we see it less as far as seatbelt not being used. I should rephrase that we see more seatbelt use on the expressway versus your county roads and M roads. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if people have the mindset that they're going to be going a little bit faster, that they should probably wear their seatbelt, which is good. But yeah, I think in county we see more seatbelts not being used.
Yeah, interesting. Well, is there anything else you want to mention about the program and the innovative things that you're doing in these work zones to try to make both the drivers and the workers, give them as safe as environment as possible?
Just, that we're going to be out there when we are working it, and we're getting creative. We'll, you might have a trooper kind of park their patrol car in front of an MDOT work vehicle to kind of hide that patrol car and, catch somebody speeding through the construction zone. We had some really, looking at the speeds that we had, I think the highest we had was 75 and a 45, and that 45 is where workers are present. So that to me is too fast in that area, especially with workers present. So we'll address that when we come across it, and just know that, for the motorists out there, that if you get a citation in that construction zone, especially in our area here, that's, you're adding $25 to that fine for a moving violation. And I don't know if you got free money to throw around, but I don't. And 25 extra bucks on top of what you're already getting is, it's a little painful right now. So, yeah.
No, I think in terms of messaging, some of the PSAs that OHSP has done over the years, and I think one that targets the most common demographic for drunk driving, which is 20-something males, the one that talks about how much money that's going to cost and how long it takes me to make, $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever. I think, unfortunately, more than the idea that person could die or they could kill somebody, it's that hit to the wallet that really gets them. So
that's true. It is. It's and I'd stop somebody just for a simple non-moving violation. I think it was window tint, and I explained to them what it would cost, and they're like, wow, and right now I can't afford that. So I'll remove it immediately. And if you think about a moving violation, and especially if your insurance gets a hold of that, then, it's quite possible your insurance rates will go up. So
yeah, absolutely.
You want to avoid that for sure.
Well, thank you, Sergeant, for taking time to talk about this and for what you're doing out there to try to keep all these contractors safe that are, trying to rebuild the roads and make for a smoother ride. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
I'd like to thank you once more for tuning in to Talking Michigan Transportation. You can find show notes and more on Apple Podcasts or Buzzsprout. I also want to acknowledge the talented people who help make this a reality each week, starting with Randy Debler, who skillfully edits the audio. Jesse Ball, who proofs the content, Courtney Bates, who posts the podcast to various platforms, and Jackie Salinas, who transcribes the audio to make it accessible to all.